Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast here on Brownfield Ag News. I'm Brent Barnett. Today's show is brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. Today on the show, we're joined by Josh Sparks with Midwest Whitetail. Josh, how's it going, man?
It is going good. It is the middle of October. The temperatures are below 50 degrees. Northwest winds are blowing. You really can't ask for much more than that as a deer hunter. So I'm in a great mood. Some people are sad that summer is come and gone. And if it was my world, it would be like this every day. So
Cool weather, harvest is in full swing, rapid pace, getting the crops out. What's the deer hunting been like for you guys so far, Josh?
Well, I'd say there's a strong correlation. I mean, for the team in general, it's been solid. Mike's had some great hunts. Owen and Joe tagged the first buck of the archery season. So, generally speaking, been very good. Personally, what you were just talking about right there with the crops coming out rapidly, it's sending a change through everything right now as far as the deer hunting goes. Bucks that I had on the properties that I was hunting, and it's just something when you hunt the permission game and there's a quote unquote lack of ability to really manipulate the surroundings by establishing your own food, or maybe it's allowing X amount of acres to remain standing for deer hunting, etc. It definitely can change the outlook of the properties you're hunting. And so for me, have a lot of good bucks in the area. Very, very fortunate for the caliber of deer that I have the chance to hunt. These crops coming out has definitely shifted them elsewhere, and it's like if you close down every restaurant in the, city and there's only one left open, less people around it, chances are that's where they're going to go. And we had a good hunt last night, saw two bucks that I knew. A lot of does. We're hunting a freshly cut cornfield, but no luck in the aspects of seeing the targets. So
I've been following you guys this season. I know you've been kind of going after this really giant, cool looking, non-typical buck. Are there any updates on that guy? Have you had any sightings of him?
Yeah. So, I filmed, if you follow along though, you've seen that. I've watched that deer all summer. I think I probably laid eyes on him 25, 30 different nights. And he and I have never crossed paths in the fall. As soon as those beans defoliated, naturally he shifted. The closest I've had him on trail camera is 15 minutes after legal shooting light. And that would have been 8 to 10 days ago. Have not laid eyes on them. Those beans have been fully cut. There was a bunch of standing corn to the south, which is a property that we really were hoping to be able to get on because it is the only corn in the area. Has great draws and brushy, aspects where they can bed. So I think we're up to the randomness of the rut right now. And a lot like I switched my focus to with the drop tine buck last year. It's really trying to learn the does and what they're doing. I think that there's going to be a day where he randomly goes through there, sure. But it's very tough because like the two bucks that I'm hunting, they're 2.5 hours apart right now. So, when I'm making a move on one, it's not as easy as I would like to just be like, oh, maybe we'll just go hunt this one. We have to get all the editing stuff, and because we're working mobily right now, which is awesome, but it also is a bit of a process. So switching back and forth is a little tougher, but I'm not complaining for sure. He looks great. He's a really cool deer. And as I said early, it's cool to be in the game on bucks like that. Just hard to hunt them when they don't live on the property or, have access to.
Well, if anybody that follows you guys, I got a kick out of one of your segments where you went and put up a trail camera on a scrape. And I think, maybe in like the overnight, you got a picture of this buck. And then I think the following morning you were driving the roads, kind of searching for your target buck. And then you guys are just sitting there talking in the truck and you go, oh, hey, look, there's that buck that was on camera last night. And he was just out in the field or down in a valley.
Yeah, no, that was, man, that new deer, he's on the same property with the non-typical you're referencing. Beautiful buck. He showed up September 30th on a mock scrape that I made. And that's one thing that's very strange is, now granted, this was 2 weeks ago at this point, but through that 2-week time frame, we're sitting in the middle of October. The non-typical has not worked a single scrape, nothing. The buck you're referencing, big, I would argue he's 4.5 at least. It's tough to say. It's the first year I've ever hunted the property, but got 7 on one side and on his left and 5 on the other. Incredible deer. He's just also one of those deer that if could live. I mean, he has everything in the makings to be like an absolute world-class animal. And it's easy to say when you're not seeing him, when you're actually hunting. So you can go into that, be cool to see him next year mode, which I don't know what we would do, but yeah, I mean, it's a draw. That's all we're hunting is really what it comes down to. And when they're in it, they're close. It's tough to get to them. Got a couple of stands for both that deer you're referencing and the non-typical. And there's enough does living on the property that I think that we should be able to, depending we put our time in, and that's what it's going to be, is watching paint dry. You just got to be there. It's like I've been telling Evan, who is one of our interns, he's helping me out this fall with the Midwest Whitetail, responsibilities. It's not saying trail cameras aren't purposeful for these deer we're hunting, but they could be debilitating if we actually watch them. Because if we watch them and we get a photo, we've missed them, if that makes sense. And so we're really trying to treat this as how can we be the camera and predict the days that would make sense, that if they were on their feet and they happen to be on the properties, will we be there?
Wanted to pick your brain on October cold fronts, Josh. I know we're talking a lot here about October hunting, but I haven't been on a bow hunt yet this year, but I did purchase an early muzzleloader tag. That's the first time I've ever hunted the early muzzleloader season. And as you and I record here on a Tuesday, it's the fourth day of early muzzleloader season. I've been out the first 3 days. I went out Saturday evening. It was 82 degrees. I got overwhelmed with mosquitoes, but I did see just a few does right at last light that came out. I was hunting kind of a public land, river bottom type habitat. The second day, went out for a morning hunt, and I worked up into this piece of public that was kind of a mix of, there's like a pine ridge, which is kind of interesting. And then it got into some more thick bedding. I didn't see anything on that hunt, but at the end of that hunt there on Sunday, I just kind of did a quick speed scout of that property. I wasn't too familiar with it, and I ended up getting up on top of the hilltop of it. It's a kind of a little bluff piece that overlooks a river bottom. And I was really shocked to find like 2 clover plots and some standing corn that I don't know if that's something the DNR put on this property, or maybe they contract with a farmer for something like that, but I've never come across something like that before on a piece of public. So then in my head, I'm thinking, oh shoot, am I still on public land? So I pull out like my phone app and stuff, and yeah, sure enough, I'm still on public land. So I went out last night. That would have been Monday night. I went right up to that where those clover plots are and some standing corn. And I saw more deer in that hunt last night than I have all season. I saw a lot of does, a lot of 1.5, 2.5-year-old bucks, a handful of them that came out. And whenever I walked the field edge on that Sunday, I did come across several pretty fresh rubs on some big cedar trees along the edge. And there were a lot of scrapes over some oaks that kind of hang over some parts of it. So I'm feeling really good about that area. I don't know if I'll be able to hunt here today on this Tuesday, but definitely I'll be going back there if there's no other pressure. I didn't see any signs or boot tracks of other people being there. Curious what your thoughts would be of an area like that. I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but that's just kind of where I'm sitting right now. This is my first time doing early muzzleloader season, and this is a piece of public that I feel like I found something I've never really come across before.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to know if there was some sort of, I guess, cover crop, planted with that clover and whatnot. But I mean, it sounds exactly like I would look for, whether it's public or private, and that's as much diversity in a food source as tight to a bedding, area as possible. And obviously, it sounds like a spot where not easily accessible, or maybe not as obvious of a spot right now. So I think that sounds like an excellent location. And I mean, it's just a matter of, is the buck that you're hunting or a buck that you want to shoot, does he happen to be in that particular bed? And that's where these last 3 days, the excitement is just simply that the chances of the deer that you're hunting getting up on his feet early enough to make it to where you are, set up, you have a higher odds of that. Now, it's still pretty dang tough, that even if you got these perfect October cold fronts, there's so much for them to do in between getting to that food source. Maybe it's scraping, and that's where the acorns become pretty killer as far as having a good hunt. They're, distracted with that precursor to their main meal, a couple snacks along the way, and then all of a sudden it's dark. And I've been seeing that on the cameras. I mean, it's unfortunately not the deer that I want to see, but the 4-year-old type age class. Like last night, we saw, like I said, multiple bucks on that fresh cut corn. He was there 45 minutes after, so something they're just betting a little too far. But I mean, if you found a little honey hole, I think it sounds like a fantastic spot to sit it out. And I mean, tonight, hope you get the chance to hunt, because technically this is our highest pressure day of the 3 days so far. I'm still pretty consistent with the wind speeds and direction. And then tomorrow, I think is going to be a really, really good day as well, too. That southwest wind switch at some point is going to get a deer up on his feet because he's going to need this switch beds. And it's just, if you've got a spot with food and you can hunt that, even on the spot you're talking about, if you can hunt that maybe in a different position with that switch, I think that if there's a buck you are hoping to see, good chances tomorrow he'll be up on his feet. But I don't know. It's just such a weird time of the season right now. It's feast or famine.
It's definitely an interesting field. Like when I say they're standing corn, I mean the corn patch is maybe 15 yards wide, but 300 yards long, if that makes sense. Kind of a long strip of standing corn. Yeah. And on each side is these, it looks like either a cover crop or a clover or something like that. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's like a DNR habitat project
like
they were doing,
snow
or
screen of sorts. Was that it's a longer? Well, you don't want to give up your spot, but it's close to a road. It almost sounds like it was something that might be left up for, a screen from snow. I didn't know if that could be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That'd be interesting. I do know a few of the, conservation agents in the area that I'm friends with. Maybe they would have some input on that. But, Josh, what success have you had in the past in October? I know some guys on your team have had a lot of luck with October cold fronts. I was thinking of a recent buck in recent years that Mike took early on, an absolute giant. I don't remember if that was last year or 2 years ago.
In 2022, I bet, is the deer you're talking about.
And then you had your Velvet Monster in October. Was that a cold front?
It was, yeah. I mean, it was very similar, reminiscent to what we had October 1st this year. Yeah, I mean, I think that the general consensus is that, and it's not to oversimplify it, but if you have a property or a situation where, a buck that you're hunting lives nearby and you can give him food sources that match the time of year, palatability wise, the chances are you're going to hold him to his routine. And I think back to Poseidon, or I think back to, let's just say, Loch Ness last year with Owen, the velvet buck that I was, hunting. In the summertime, those bucks were heavily focused on nearby ag, but they still weren't going that far. And then as the beans defoliated and all of a sudden these, early season greens plots, and like Owen's case, he did that whole variety from Monster Buck that had all of these different plants that in his mind, he wanted to give a food source for Loch Ness at all times of the season. Had a big enough field so that the tonnage never got browsed down to the point where it was gone. But you just kind of create these spots that the bucks don't move. You don't see that quote unquote fall shift. And if anything, the fall shift is coming from somewhere else that they were previously at the right time of year. And that's the biggest difference with what I think a lot of guys can get discouraged with is, they've got a big deer in the area. They have a decent food source. They think he's just going to walk out. But the chances are that the bedroom that a buck would use let's just use the spot that I'm hunting, for example, doesn't really match up with the things I just talked about. It's a great food source. There's a lot of waste grain on the ground. You'd walk across it and be like, man, I'm going to see so many deer out here. And while the numbers might be there, the bucks that I'm hunting, and frankly, the deer that we're hunting, they're not getting there super early. And the reason why is that, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, lucky to be there. But the bedding, where my guess is on a northwest wind, I'm hunting out a northwest wind. That's not what they're doing. They're thinking, how do I best get out of this wind? How do I lay down the safest all day? That just happens to be a few hundred yards away compared to what I would like to see, which was betting, 50 to 100 yards away. So that's where your TSI projects can come in. That's where, a little bit of manipulation and edge feathering along this particular field could completely change the daylight activity that I see in the future. However, it's a permission farm, so I don't want to get too hasty with changes and asks too early. But I think it really does take the right set of variables. You can get lucky for sure. I mean, there's deer that go on a walk, they go check a random scrape line. These cold fronts are a great time to see that random giant show up. I mean, you can't get discouraged because you don't have the perfect scenario. You know what I'm saying? But you also, in my opinion, need to temper your expectations that it's not that some of these guys we see go out and do this year to year to year. It's like, oh, that must be nice. They're taking steps to make those spots specifically good for daylight activity on these cold fronts. The food's only one component of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Josh, we've run out of time here. Great information. Always good to talk to you. How can listeners stay connected with Midwest Whitetail?
Watch Midwest Whitetail every Monday. There's a new Midwest Whitetail main show episode that comes out on our YouTube channel. You can find that on Realtree 365, Carbon TV, Waypoint TV as well. We have all the social platforms of Midwest Whitetail Official on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And then, if you want to check out the new series we're doing called Midwest Whitetail, The Chase, that's also on our YouTube platform. So I appreciate it, man. Hope you've been well. Hope that the lesson muzzleloader goes fantastic for you. And it's always good to catch up. So good luck the rest of the season.
Yeah, same to you. Good luck, Josh. Again, that's Josh Sparks with Midwest Whitetail. Reminder that this week's program has been brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. I'm Brent Barnett on Brownfield. Have a great weekend.